Okay, let's unpack this. What if the key to feeling happier, more engaged, and surprisingly more resilient isn't found in retreating or resting, but in actually leaning into challenge, effort, and continuously stretching your mind?
Hmm.
For many of us, hearing the word learning after formal school might just bring back memories of stress, pressure, maybe feeling overwhelmed, lost, or those dreaded deadlines. It might sound like the last thing you'd associate with happiness.
That reaction is completely understandable. I
Yeah.
mean, the structured, often high-stakes environment of formal education can definitely leave some lasting impressions that aren't always positive.
Right. Yeah, it can
Yeah,
feel like a chore, a hoop to jump through.
exactly. Like, glad that's over. But the sources we're diving into today, this really fascinating stack of research, psychological studies, and real-world perspectives, well, they offer a powerful counterpoint.
They suggest that engaging in learning throughout our lives, what's often called lifelong learning, isn't just about career advancement or acquiring credentials. It turns out that embracing that student mindset, not necessarily in a classroom with tests, but in a broader, more active sense, might just be a significant pathway to subjective well-being.
Absolutely. And this isn't just a nice idea. The research specifically looks at the data, at what happens when adults deliberately engage their minds and expand their skills and knowledge. And the findings are compelling. They really explore the why behind this connection, how staying intellectually engaged can help you stay engaged with life itself, and in doing so, foster a sense of thriving.
So our mission for this deep dive is to pull apart these sources, understand the robust link they identify between lifelong learning and subjective well-being, and look at how consciously cultivating a student mindset could enhance your own happiness and resilience. We're going to understand what they mean by these terms, look at what the data actually shows, delve into the mechanisms, the how learning impacts well-being, acknowledge that it's not without its challenges, and then explore practical ways you can actively integrate this into your life.
Exactly. It's about moving beyond the traditional view of education and seeing learning as a dynamic, ongoing process that has, well, profound implications for how we feel about our lives.
All right, let's jump in. First things first, we need to clarify the language these sources use. What exactly do they mean by subjective well-being and lifelong learning? Because these terms can be a bit broader than we might initially assume.
Good starting point.
Yeah.
When researchers in this field talk about subjective well-being or SWB, they're definitely not talking about just a fleeting feeling of being happy today or, putting on a brave face. It's a much deeper, more complex concept.
Okay, so it's not just about being cheerful, like right now.
No, it's not superficial. While definitions can vary slightly, there's general agreement that SWB has several key components. One aspect is the emotional side, what researchers call affect.
Affect.
Yeah, affect. This involves the balance between positive emotions and negative emotions over time, not just in a single moment. Bradburn's work back in the 60s was foundational here, looking at whether people experience more positive feelings like joy, contentment, enthusiasm, than negative ones like sadness, anger, anxiety on a regular basis.
So a general emotional climate, essentially, like
Yeah.
the overall weather pattern of your feeling.
Precisely. Then there's a cognitive component. This is about how people evaluate specific areas of their life, often called domain satisfactions.
Okay.
Are you satisfied with your job, your relationships, your health, your financial situation, your leisure time, your community? People make judgments about how they feel about these different domains.
That makes a lot of sense. My overall happiness is definitely tied to how things are going in the different parts of my life. If work is stressful, it impacts everything.
Exactly. And bringing this together is the third key piece, global judgments of life satisfaction. This is your overall evaluation of your life as a whole. How close is your life to your ideal? How satisfied are you with your life overall? Diener and colleagues formalized this multidimensional view in the late 90s, looking at emotional responses, domain satisfactions, and this overarching life satisfaction judgment.
So it's the feelings, the satisfaction with the pieces, and the satisfaction with the whole picture. Got it.
Right. And some views expand even further, incorporating dimensions beyond just individual feelings or satisfaction. For example, Marx and Shaw's Well-being Manifesto included not just personal dimensions like life satisfaction and personal development, but also a social context, what they termed social well-being.
Social well-being, how does that fit in?
Well, it recognizes that our sense of thriving is also deeply intertwined with our connections to others, our role in our communities, and our ability to contribute. It's not just about me, it's about us.
That adds a significant layer. It's not just internal, it's also relational and developmental.
Absolutely. And this broader perspective is reflected in the methodology of a key data source for this research, the European Quality of Life Survey. or equal LS4. It deliberately uses a multidimensional approach, gathering data on both objective factors, things like your level of education, your employment status, your income, your health.
Measurable stuff.
Exactly. And subjective perceptions like your self-rated happiness, your trust in others, your feelings of social inclusion. The survey recognizes that these objective circumstances and our subjective feelings about them are interdependent. They influence each other and collectively shape our overall well-being.
Okay, so subjective well-being is this rich mix of emotions, specific life satisfactions, overall life judgment, and even personal development and social connection. Got it. Now, what about the other side of the equation? Lifelong learning. As you said up front, this isn't just about going back to college.
Crucially, no. The research highlights the important distinction between education and learning. Education, as described by sources like Masada and Kremen, is often seen as a more formal, systematic process, typically structured within institutions like schools, colleges, or universities.
Right.
It's often curriculum-driven, age-specific, and aims at the acquisition of knowledge and skills within that formal structure.
That's the image many people have: classrooms, textbooks, grades, the whole system.
Exactly. But learning, as defined by researchers like Washburn way back in the 1930s and Ambrose more recently, is a far broader, more holistic, and importantly, a transformative process.
Transformative, how so?
It's about the acquisition of knowledge, skills, competencies, and values, not just within formal settings, but throughout your entire life, through study, teaching, working, pursuing hobbies, engaging in community activities, or simply navigating life experiences. It's a continuous process that leads to change and development in the individual. It changes how you see things, how you act.
So it's woven into the fabric of everyday life, not confined to a building or a specific time period, like learning to cook a new dish or figuring out a new app on your phone.
Precisely. And for the purpose of the research we're examining, adult learning specifically refers to participation in both formal adult education, like pursuing a degree later in life, taking accredited courses, and non-formal training.
Ah, okay. What falls under non-formal?
Non-formal training is key here. It includes things like workshops, seminars, online courses, like MOOCs, learning a new skill through a club or community group, vocational training that isn't part of a degree, or even self-directed learning pursued out of personal interest, like watching documentaries or reading widely on a topic.
That's a really wide net.
It is. The Equal S4 survey variables specifically captured participation in both types of adult learning, for both professional and purely personal reasons. So when the study talks about lifelong learning and its link to happiness, this broad spectrum of adult learning activities is what they are measuring.
That distinction is really helpful. So SWB is this complex picture of how we're feeling and evaluating our lives across many dimensions. And LLL is this ongoing process of gaining knowledge and skills throughout adulthood, formally or informally, for any reason. With those definitions in place, let's look at the core finding. What does the actual data from the research, particularly from that large EqualS4 survey, tell us about the association between these two things?
This is where the evidence becomes quite compelling. The study used a mixed methods approach, which is a real strength, giving us both the broad patterns and the personal stories behind them.
Okay, tell me more about why the mixed methods approach is valuable here. What do you gain by combining different methods?
Well, you gain depth and breadth, and a stronger ability to understand the why behind the what. Think of it this way. The quantitative analysis of a huge survey like the EqualS4 gives you statistical power.
Right, the big numbers.
Exactly. With over 36,000 respondents across many countries, you can identify significant correlations and patterns that are likely generalizable to larger populations. It tells you that there's a relationship between participating in adult learning and reporting higher happiness levels, even after controlling for other factors. But it doesn't tell you why on a personal level.
And that's where the other method comes in, the stories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The qualitative part involved in-depth interviews with 24 adults who are actively engaged in lifelong learning. These interviews provide the rich context, the nuances, the personal experiences, and the subjective meaning individuals attach to their learning. They share their stories about how learning impacted their lives, their feelings, their connections, their careers.
So it puts flesh on the bones of the statistics.
Beautifully put. Combining these interviews with the survey data allows the researchers to not only say, yes, these things are linked, but also to propose and support the mechanisms, the specific ways that learning appears to contribute to well-being based on people's lived experiences. It helps explain the correlation.
So the numbers show a pattern and the stories help explain the pattern. That feels much more robust. Much more convincing.
It really does. It helps overcome the limitations of relying on just one type of data. Now, what do the big numbers say? Based on that massive EQUALS-4 data set, the key quantitative finding was clear. There is a significant positive association between participating in adult learning and reporting higher levels of happiness.
A significant association. Let's dig into that a bit. How did they measure happiness in the survey? Was it complicated?
Actually, quite simple. The survey asked respondents to rate their happiness on a 1 to 10 scale, where 1 meant very unhappy and 10 meant very happy.
Standard scale.
Okay.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the most frequently chosen response was 8, suggesting a generally positive outlook in the population surveyed. Overall, a large majority, 77.5%, placed themselves in the happy category, scoring 6 or higher.
Okay, so most people consider themselves happy overall. How did participation in learning factor into that? Where's the connection?
This is where it gets really interesting when you look at the breakdown. To make the comparison starker, the researchers grouped the responses into 2 categories. Not happy, scores 1 to 5, and happy, scores 6-10.
Makes sense.
Then they looked at the percentage of people in each group who had participated in some form of adult learning in the previous 12 months.
And the difference was notable.
It was striking, really noticeable. If you look at the data presented, specifically in Figure 9 from the source, among the people who reported being not happy, a vast majority, 87%, had not participated in any adult learning.
87%, that's huge.
It is. Now, shift your focus to the group who reported being happy. The percentage of people in this group who had not participated in adult learning dropped significantly, down to 70.6%.
Wow. So if you were happy, you were much less likely to be in the group that didn't participate in learning. That's a big jump, down from 87%.
Exactly. Turning it around, consider the participation rates themselves. Among the not happy group, only about 13% had participated in some form of adult learning that's combining those who did one type or both types.
Okay, 13% of the not happy folks were learners.
Right. Compare that to the happy group. Approximately 29.4% had participated in some form of adult learning.
So more than double, almost 30% versus 13%.
Yeah, the rate of participation in adult learning is more than double among those who reported being happy compared to those who reported being not happy. Just a huge difference.
That's a really powerful correlation. It strongly suggests that learning is somehow linked to the state of higher well-being.
It does. And this is where the multivariate analysis becomes absolutely crucial for the research's argument. Because, happiness is complex.
Right, lots of things feed into it.
Exactly. It's influenced by your age, your gender, whether you have a job, how much money you make, what your existing education level is, your health status, your relationship status, so many factors.
So you might think, well, maybe it's not the learning itself. Maybe it's just that people who learn more also happen to have better jobs or more education already.
Precisely. If the study simply showed a correlation without accounting for these other factors, you could easily dismiss it. You might say, well, maybe people who already have higher education are just happier, and they're also more likely to keep learning. Or maybe employed people are happier, and they're also more likely to get job training. It could just be a side effect of something else.
So the multivariate analysis controls for those other things. It isolates the learning part.
Exactly. The researchers used statistical models that allowed them to effectively hold those other factors constant, mathematically speaking, and isolate the effect of adult learning participation itself.
And what did they find when they did that?
And even after controlling for variables like age, gender, employment status, household income, relationship status, health, and existing educational attainment, the significant positive relationship between participating in adult learning and being happier persisted.
Wow. So it wasn't just explained away by those other factors.
Nope. This means that participation in adult learning appears to have an independent association with happiness over above the influence of those other factors.
That strengthens the finding considerably. It's not just that happy people are already privileged in some way and therefore learn more. Learning itself seems connected to higher happiness, even among people with similar backgrounds or circumstances.
That's the implication from the data. It provides robust statistical evidence for the association. Which then leads us to the next, perhaps even more interesting question. Why? How does engaging in lifelong learning actually contribute to subjective well-being? What are the mechanisms at play?
This is the heart of the deep dive unpacking the how. Where does the research point us first? What's the first mechanism?
Okay, so the qualitative interviews and broader psychological insights from the sources highlight several key ways. The first one seems to be through personal growth and self-understanding. Learning contributes directly to understanding yourself better and fostering development as a person.
How did the people they interviewed express this? Did they actually use words like personal growth?
Some did, yeah. Participants shared powerful examples of learning being a catalyst for inner change. One participant, Olya, spoke about how her learning experiences weren't just about acquiring professional skills, but assisted in personal growth, forming a more holistic view on life.
A holistic view.
Yeah.
So, like seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly. It suggests learning opened her perspective, helped her see things differently, maybe understand different cultures, histories, or philosophies, which reshaped her understanding of herself and her place in the world. Another person, participant 4, described how learning empowered their self-development to become the better version of myself and hopefully to make positive impact on the world.
That's quite profound. Learning as a tool for becoming who you want to be.
It really speaks to learning as a tool for self-improvement, aligning actions with values, and gaining the capacity to contribute meaningfully.
So it's not just about knowing more, but about becoming more.
Exactly. It's a transformative process. And the Hayes article reinforces this idea by highlighting that learning a new skill often brings a new sense of purpose. When you're learning something challenging, you have a goal, a direction, a sense of striving towards something meaningful. This feeling of continuous growth, self-improvement, and having a purpose directly ties into key dimensions of subjective well-being. It adds meaning and vitality to life.
I can see that. Working towards something, especially something that feels like it's making you a more capable or understanding person that feels inherently good. What's the second mechanism?
The second relates to material well-being and professional self-realization. While learning isn't just about jobs, the practical benefits are undeniable and contribute significantly to overall life satisfaction.
Like making you more employable or better at your job, the practical side of things.
Precisely. In today's rapidly evolving economy, acquiring new knowledge and skills is often crucial for professional development and maintaining relevance. As one of the interviewees, Nikita, noted, learning can make individuals more valuable in the market.
Right? Keeps you competitive.
Yeah, and this isn't just about getting a higher salary, although that can certainly be a factor. It's also about having more career options, adapting to changing industry demands, feeling competent and confident in your role, and pursuing work that feels more aligned with your interests and skills.
So it opens doors and helps you feel more secure and fulfilled in your work life, which reduces stress, I imagine.
Exactly. Participant 3's experience illustrates this well. They talked about getting a master's degree, how it expanded their career options and helped them find decent jobs. They observed that while the degree might not have directly caused happiness in a simplistic sense, it supported positive growth in life, thereby impacting our subjective well-being indirectly.
So it improved their material circumstances and professional standing.
Right, which are strong contributors to overall life satisfaction and a sense of security.
And the Forbes article we looked at really drove home how critical this is today, didn't it?
Right.
With technology changing everything so fast.
It did. It underscores that due to technological advancements in automation, continuous upskilling and reskilling are no longer optional. They're pretty much essential for navigating the modern job market. The demand is increasing for higher-order cognitive skills, complex problem-solving, critical thinking, creativity, emotional intelligence, communication skills that are often developed or enhanced through learning experiences, even informal ones.
Stuff robots can't do easily.
Exactly. Staying relevant keeps you employed and can lead to more engaging, less stressful roles.
Speaking of employment, the study's survey data also showed that being employed is linked to higher happiness, right? That came up in the stats.
Yes, that's another relevant piece of the puzzle. The survey data confirmed that employed individuals, on average, reported higher levels of happiness compared to those who are unemployed or retired. Other research cited in the thesis, like studies by Oswald and Deneve and Ward, have shown just how destructive unemployment can be to material, social, and subjective well-being.
Yeah, it's more than just losing income.
Oh, absolutely. It's often the loss of routine, social connection, self-confidence, and social status. And the Hayes article also points out the significant link between chronic work stress and poor mental health. So if learning helps you stay employed, find a better or less stressful job, or transition to a more fulfilling career,
then it's directly supporting material security, professional identity, and reducing stress.
Precisely. All of which positively impact your well-being.
Okay, so learning makes you grow personally, makes you more capable and secure professionally. What's the third way it boosts well-being? What else is going on?
The third mechanism is through social connections and community. Learning is frequently a social endeavor, and it provides fertile ground for building meaningful relationships.
That makes sense. You're often learning alongside other people, right, in a class or workshop.
Exactly. Whether it's a formal class, a workshop, a study group, or even an online community around a shared interest, learning experiences bring you into contact with others who share your curiosity or passion. This can significantly boost social well-being by allowing you to form new friendships, expand your professional network, and build a sense of belonging.
The interviewees spoke about this, didn't they? I remember that point.
They did. Eva's reflection was particularly striking. She estimated that her learning experiences accounted for over 90% of her social capital.
90%, wow.
Yeah. She distinguished between the professional network she built through formal education and the lasting friendships she formed through non-formal learning activities. This highlights how learning can contribute to both your professional support system and your personal circle.
That's a great distinction, professional and personal connections.
And Caitlin found it remarkably easy to connect with people who are eager to learn on your passion for knowledge. She described these connections as inspiring and motivating, reinforcing the joy of shared intellectual pursuits. Liza also emphasized the social aspect as a crucial part of her learning journey.
It's more than just being in the same room. It's connecting over a shared interest or goal. You have something immediate to talk about.
Precisely. You have an immediate common ground. And being part of a learning community directly combats loneliness, which is a significant detractor from well-being, as noted in the Hayes article. Human connection and a sense of belonging are fundamental psychological needs, and lifelong learning provides many avenues to meet those needs.
So, personal growth, professional benefits, social connection. Those are powerful drivers of well-being. Is there a psychological concept that brings another dimension to this? Something about the feeling of learning itself?
Yes, and this is where it gets really interesting, tapping into the sheer psychological pleasure of the learning process itself. The fourth mechanism connects learning to the concept of psychological flow, as described by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
Flow state. I've heard of this, that feeling of being completely immersed, losing track of time, being in the zone.
That's exactly it. Flow is described as an optimal experience. It's a state of consciousness where you are completely absorbed in an activity, intensely focused, and feel a high level of intrinsic gratification from the activity itself. It's not about the reward after, it's about the reward during.
Okay. And it happens when things are just right.
Yes, it happens when there's a perfect balance between the challenge of the task and your perceived skills. The task is demanding enough to be stimulating and require your full attention, but not so difficult that it feels frustrating or overwhelming.
That sweet spot. And how does learning connect to this state?
Well, learning activities, when appropriately challenging and engaging, are prime opportunities to enter a flow state. Think about the process. You're grappling with a new concept, practicing a difficult technique, solving a complex problem, or creating something using newly acquired knowledge.
Yeah, like trying to figure out a tricky part in a piece of music or getting code to work.
Exactly. When you find that sweet spot, say, learning that new piece of music that pushes your current playing ability just enough, or trying to write code for a new function that requires applying several new principles, you can become completely absorbed.
So it's not just the outcome of learning, but the process itself that can be deeply rewarding, the actual doing of it.
Absolutely. The joy isn't necessarily in mastering the skill instantly, but in the focused engagement of the attempt, the practice, the struggle, and the small breakthroughs along the way. When you're in flow, your attention is fully consumed by the task. Csikszentmihalyi famously explained that our minds have a limited capacity for processing information, around 110 bits per second apparently.
Yeah.
When you're in a state of flow, the demanding activity uses up this mental bandwidth. There's simply no room left in your mind for distracting worries, anxieties, or self-critical thoughts. Your consciousness is completely ordered and focused on the rewarding activity.
Your brain is happily busy, and there's no space for the negative chatter. That's powerful. I can see how that would feel good.
It is. It's a state of effortless concentration and deep enjoyment. Regularly achieving this optimal experience through various activities, including learning, contributes significantly to overall life satisfaction. It provides moments of profound engagement and intrinsic reward that enrich your life beyond external achievements or material gains.
And you mentioned something about the kind of personality that's maybe more inclined towards this. Some people find flow more easily.
Yes, Csikszentmihalyi discussed what he called the autotelic personality. This term comes from the Greek words auto, self, and telos, end or goal. An autotelic activity is one where the activity itself is the reward. The process is the goal.
Okay, the doing is the point.
Right. An autotelic personality is someone who is naturally more inclined to seek out and enjoy these types of intrinsically rewarding activities. They often possess traits like curiosity, persistence, humility, sort of a low self-centeredness. And they're motivated more by the inherent interest and enjoyment of what they're doing than by external rewards or validation.
So someone who is genuinely curious and loves the process itself, not just aiming for the A plus or the promotion.
Exactly. This type of personality seems almost perfectly suited for lifelong learning and for finding joy in the process. They are naturally driven to explore, to challenge themselves, and to seek out the conditions where flow can occur. And conversely, regularly engaging in learning activities that induce flow could potentially help cultivate some of these autotelic traits over time. It might be a virtuous cycle.
That's a fascinating loop. Curiosity leads to learning and flow reinforces curiosity and the desire to learn more. Okay, we've built a strong case for the why. Personal growth, professional relevance, social connection, and the pure psychological reward of flow. But we also have to acknowledge that the learning journey, especially for adults juggling responsibilities, isn't always smooth sailing. The research did touch on potential downsides, didn't it? It wasn't all positive.
It did, and it's crucial for a balanced view. Absolutely. While the overall association with happiness is positive, the path of lifelong learning can certainly present challenges and negative experiences. The thesis findings included insights from participants about these difficulties.
What were some of the main challenges they identified? What makes it hard?
Well, one of the primary challenges is stress. That came up quite a bit. Learning, particularly in more structured or formal settings, can be a significant source of stress. This comes from academic pressures like assignments, exams, and deadlines.
The usual suspects.
Right. But there can also be social pressures, such as managing expectations from family or colleagues, or just the inherent stress of balancing learning commitments with existing responsibilities like a job, family care, or other life demands.
Yeah, juggling work, family, and adding learning on top sounds incredibly demanding. Finding the time, the energy.
It absolutely can be.
Yeah.
Participants also reported experiencing feelings of being lost or overwhelmed. This happens when the material is complex or unfamiliar, when the pace is too fast, or when they're unsure how to navigate the learning environment. This feeling of being adrift or overloaded can lead to anxiety and, in some cases, impact mental health and self-esteem. You feel like you're drowning.
And you mentioned that past negative experiences can resurface, like bad memories from school.
Yes, that's a significant point. For some adults, previous negative experiences in formal education, perhaps struggling academically, facing harsh criticism, or feeling like they didn't fit in, can create a sense of apprehension or even dread about returning to learning. These past stresses can make engaging in adult learning feel intimidating or emotionally difficult.
It's like carrying old baggage into a new situation. Makes it harder to start or stick with it.
Exactly. And finally, the research noted that while learning creates opportunities and can raise aspirations, it can also lead to unfulfilled aspirations.
How does that work?
Well, Diener and colleagues' work highlighted that when there's a significant gap between a person's high expectations or goals, which are often fueled by the possibilities learning presents, and the reality they encounter, like maybe not getting the hoped-for job, finding the field more difficult than expected, or external circumstances changing, it can lead to disappointment and unhappiness.
So you learn all this stuff, get excited about the possibilities, but then reality doesn't quite match up.
Right. Ferrante's findings sparred this, noting that expectations are frequently higher than the available opportunities, causing dissatisfaction. The dream doesn't always materialize exactly as planned.
So the potential for stress, feeling overwhelmed, rehashing old school trauma, and facing disappointment is real. It's not a magic bullet that instantly solves everything and makes you happy.
Definitely not. It's a journey, and like any journey, it has its difficulties, its rough patches. Acknowledging these challenges is vital. But the sources also offer insights into navigating these bumps, largely by cultivating a particular internal approach.
And this internal approach ties back to the student mindset you mentioned earlier. How you think about it matters.
Precisely. This is where the concept of a growth mindset, popularized by Carol Dweck, becomes incredibly powerful. It offers a framework for embracing lifelong learning, not just for joy, but for building resilience in the face of these challenges.
The growth mindset idea that abilities can be developed through effort, that you're not just born smart or not good at math.
Exactly. It's the belief that your fundamental abilities, like intelligence or talent, are not fixed traits, but can be developed through dedication, hard work, good strategies, and mentorship. This seemingly simple belief has profound implications. So when you adopt a growth mindset, You see challenges as opportunities to learn and grow, not as tests of innate, unchangeable ability. This opens you up to lifelong learning because you genuinely believe you can improve, acquire new skills, and overcome difficulties through effort.
It removes that fear of looking dumb.
Right. And critically, it reframes age. Instead of seeing getting older as a time of declining capacity where learning becomes harder, a growth mindset helps you see the accumulated wisdom and experience of age as an advantage. It gives you perhaps more courage and perspective to tackle new learning challenges.
So it's about seeing potential where others might see limitations. How can someone actively cultivate this mindset and make the learning process more positive and resilient? Are there concrete steps?
Yes, the sources, particularly on the growth mindset, offer practical strategies. Think of these as actionable steps you can consciously practice.
Okay, what's the first step? How do we start building that mindset?
First, embrace challenges. This is fundamental to a growth mindset. Instead of avoiding tasks that feel difficult or outside your comfort zone, actively seek them out, or at least don't shy away when they appear. See them as opportunities to stretch yourself, learn something new, and build resilience. It's in confronting difficulty that real growth happens.
Give me an example of embracing a challenge in a learning context. What does that look like day to day?
It doesn't have to be monumental. If you're trying to learn a new language, don't just stick to the easy lessons. Try having a simple conversation, even if you stumble over words and feel awkward.
Okay, push yourself a bit.
Yeah. If you're learning a new software program, try to build something slightly more complex than the tutorial shows you. If you're reading about a complex topic, don't shy away from the challenging chapters. Break them down. Start small, maybe try a slightly more complex recipe than you usually cook. Sign up for that short online class you've been intimidated by, or read a book that uses vocabulary or concepts you're not familiar with. Each small challenge you embrace builds your capacity and confidence.
Okay, actively seek out difficulty, or at least don't run from it. What's the second practical tip?
Second, seek and use feedback. View feedback, whether it's constructive criticism on your work, suggestions on how to improve a skill, or even just observations about your performance, not as a personal indictment, but as valuable information. It's a tool for growth.
Okay, but feedback can feel uncomfortable sometimes. It can sting. How do you approach it with a growth mindset?
It definitely can. The key is to try and depersonalize it and focus on the actionable insights. When you receive feedback, take a moment, maybe thank the person, and then consciously ask yourself, what is one specific thing I can take from this feedback that will help me get closer to my goals?
Just one thing.
Focus on just one point at first, especially if it's a lot of feedback. Then write down a concrete action step based on that point and commit to practicing it or implementing it in the coming week. This shifts feedback from something you endure or get defensive about to something you actively leverage for improvement.
Turning criticism into a practical step. I like that. Makes it less personal. What's next?
Third, learn from others' success. Instead of feeling jealous or intimidated by successful people, which is a common fixed mindset reaction, see them as sources of inspiration and learning. Analyze what makes their approach effective.
How do you do that without just feeling bad about yourself?
You shift from comparison to analysis.
Yeah.
Ask, what strategies do they use? What habits do they have? What can you learn from their journey, their process, their struggles, their persistence, not just their shiny end result? If you admire someone's presentation skills, don't think, I could never do that. Instead, analyze why their presentation works.
Like, break it down.
Exactly. Is it their structure, their storytelling, their visual aids, their delivery style? Identify one technique they use and try to incorporate it into your own practice. This transforms successful individuals from unreachable idols into relatable guides whose paths offer clues.
That's a great way to channel that energy. Makes sense. Fourth tip.
Fourth, rethink failure. This is perhaps the most critical piece of resilience and central to the growth mindset. Setbacks or failures are not proof that you lack ability. They are simply opportunities to learn. Every mistake, every outcome that wasn't what you hoped for provides valuable information.
Easier said than done sometimes. How do you practically rethink a failure when it feels awful?
It takes practice. When something doesn't go as planned, maybe you didn't pass an exam, a project you worked on didn't succeed, or you didn't master a new skill as quickly as you hoped to consciously try, to list the specific lessons you learned from that experience. Ask yourself, what did I learn about my approach, about the task itself, about my preparation?
Okay, like a debrief.
Exactly. Then think about how you can apply those lessons next time you face a similar challenge. Reframe the outcome. It wasn't a failure of you. It was a result that provided data for iteration and improvement.
Data, not destiny. I like that framing. Okay. And the fifth and final tip for cultivating this mindset.
Fifth, and this directly addresses one of the challenges we discussed earlier, feeling lost or overwhelmed. Reframe self-doubt as curiosity. Self-doubt is a completely natural feeling, especially when you are pushing into unfamiliar territory, which is what learning fundamentally involves.
Yeah, that feeling of, can I really do this?
Right. It's often a sign that you are stretching yourself, that you are on the edge of growth.
That's a powerful reframe. Self-doubt isn't a stop sign, it's a sign you're moving into new territory.
Yes. So instead of letting self-doubt freeze you or discourage you, try to consciously reframe that feeling as curiosity. When you think, I don't know if I can do this, pause and ask yourself, what can I learn from this process, even if I don't achieve the perfect outcome? What might I discover about the topic, or even about myself, by trying?
You're shifting the focus from the scary potential failure to the exciting potential discovery. Less pressure.
Exactly. The source points out that physiologically, the feelings of fear and excitement are very similar racing heart, butterflies in the stomach. We often stop at labeling it fear, but we can consciously choose to tap into the underlying energy and label it excitement, the excitement of discovery, the excitement of the challenge.
Choose excitement over fear.
Kind of.
Right?
Approach your learning goals and tasks as small experiments. Each attempt yields results, and those results, whether perfect or imperfect, provide insight and contribute to your overall growth trajectory. Patience, persistence, self-kindness, and embracing joy and curiosity are key ingredients in this process. It's okay not to get it right away.
Those practical tips for the growth mindset feel like they directly address some of the challenges we discussed, using feedback to combat feeling lost, reframing failure, and doubt to deal with stress and past experiences. It feels very connected.
They are deeply interconnected. Cultivating a growth mindset provides the internal operating system, if you will, that makes lifelong learning sustainable and joyful, helping you navigate the inevitable difficulties with greater resilience.
And all of this is happening in a world that is increasingly demanding this kind of continuous learning, isn't it? The modern landscape of work and life really necessitates this student mindset, whether we like it or not sometimes.
It absolutely does. The Forbes article highlights how the need for lifelong learning is intensifying due to several factors. One is significant demographic shifts. More adults over 25, whether they are career changers, parents returning to the workforce, or retirees pursuing new interests, are engaging in education and training later in life.
So it's not just 18 to 22-year-olds anymore.
Not at all. This is changing the traditional model of education being something you do only when you're young.
And the pace of change is accelerating the need for upskilling. Everything moves so fast now.
Rapidly. Driven by technology like AI, automation, and data science, industries are evolving at an unprecedented pace. Skills become outdated faster than ever before. The article argues that lifelong learning is becoming almost a full-time job, simply to stay relevant and competitive.
A full-time job on top of your full-time job.
Yeah. Well, yeah, in a sense. It's not just about acquiring foundational knowledge anymore. It's about continuously developing higher-order cognitive skills that technology can't easily replicate. Complex problem-solving, creative thinking, effective communication, collaboration, critical analysis.
So learning isn't just personally enriching, it's becoming a professional necessity for navigating a dynamic workforce. You have to keep learning to keep up.
Exactly. It's about adaptability and ensuring you can contribute effectively in roles that require uniquely human capabilities. And this growing demand for adult learning is also transforming how learning is delivered. We're seeing a shift
Towards what?
towards more flexible and practical learning options designed to fit into busy adult lives.
Like online courses and shorter programs, things you can do part-time.
Yes, those are key examples. We're seeing the rise of massive open online courses, LOCs, short online programs, intensive boot camps for specific skills, hybrid programs that combine online and in-person elements, and a greater emphasis on hands-on projects and experiential learning, stuff you can actually use right away.
Makes sense. Adults need practicality.
And technology is also enabling more personalized learning pathways, allowing individuals to focus on exactly the skills and knowledge they need when they need them. These formats cater to adults who might be juggling full-time jobs, family responsibilities, and other commitments, making it more feasible than ever to integrate learning into your life.
So the barriers are coming down in some ways. It's easier to access learning.
The access is definitely improving. And universities and other institutions are having to adapt to this new reality of multi-generational learners with different needs and goals.
Are they adapting quickly enough?
Well, the article notes that while many educators recognize the need for more skills-based, practical learning models suited for adults with real-world experience, the implementation of these models is still evolving. There's progress, but maybe not as fast as the world is changing.
Change is hard for big institutions.
It is. But the trend points towards greater collaboration between academic institutions and businesses, offering internships and real-world projects, and leveraging technology to personalize learning experiences. The goal is to move beyond simply offering night classes and to truly integrate the diverse experiences and needs of adult learners into the core of the educational offering. It's about fostering environments where people of all ages can learn from and alongside each other, recognizing that everyone brings valuable experience and perspective to the table.
This has been a really comprehensive deep dive. Wow. We started by questioning the traditional view of learning and its connection to happiness, and we've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. We've clarified the complex nature of subjective well-being. It's not just happiness, and defined lifelong learning as this broad, continuous, and transformative process.
Yeah.
We've seen the strong quantitative evidence from that big =S4 survey, showing a significant positive association between participating in adult learning and higher reported happiness levels, an association that holds even when you control for many other influential factors.
Which is pretty convincing. And we've explored the compelling reasons why this link exists, based on both survey data and individual experiences. Learning fuels personal growth and a sense of purpose.
Right. It enhances material well-being and professional fulfillment in a changing economy.
It creates vital social connections and community.
And it allows us to tap into that deeply rewarding psychological state of flow, that optimal experience.
We've also provided a balanced perspective by acknowledging the real challenges. The stress, the feeling of being lost, the potential for past negative experiences to resurface, and the risk of unfulfilled aspirations. It's not always easy.
Not at all.
And crucially, we've equipped ourselves, and hopefully you listening, with practical strategies drawn from the concept of a growth mindset for navigating those challenges and truly embracing the student mindset for both joy and resilience.
Yeah, by actively seeking out challenges, viewing feedback as a tool for growth, learning from the success of others, reframing setbacks as learning opportunities, and transforming self-doubt into productive curiosity.
Little mental shifts that can make a big difference.
Exactly. Finally, we've placed all of this within the broader context of the modern world, recognizing that lifelong learning isn't just a personal pursuit, but an increasing necessity in a rapidly evolving landscape, driving innovation in how and what we learn.
So the core takeaway, reinforced by this deep dive into the research, is that being a student isn't a phase you complete. It's really a mindset and a lifestyle that can fundamentally enrich your life and contribute to a deeper sense of well-being. It's about finding purpose, building connections, thriving professionally, experiencing those moments of deep engagement, and cultivating a mindset that embraces growth and finds joy in the journey itself.
It suggests that consciously choosing to learn, to stay curious, and to engage your mind throughout your life is one of the most proactive steps you can take towards living a more engaged and, well, happier life.
Which leaves us with this thought for you to carry forward. In a world that constantly presents new challenges and offers boundless opportunities for discovery, how might actively choosing to be a lifelong student, fueled by curiosity and the pursuit of those optimal experiences, transform your sense of happiness and purpose? What is one small thing you could start learning today?
Something to ponder. Definitely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.